Hi, I'm Brock Yates Jr. My father invented the cannonball in 1971, and I was on the first one with him, Jim Williams, Steve Smith, where we set the record in 40 hours and 51 minutes. Later that same year, Brock and Dan Gurney reset the record. And now, after many other attempts, we have a new record. Congratulations to Doug and Arne. Great job. Don't know how you did it. Good God, I don't know how you did it.
In 75, Jack May and Rick Klein improved the record to 35 hours, 53 minutes.
I'm David Yarborough. In 1979, Dave Hines and I set the record at 32 hours and 51 minutes in the fifth and final cannonball run. Congratulations, Doug and Arne.
In 1983, David Deem and Doug Turner set the record. In 2006, Alex Roy and I broke that record. In 2007, we announced the news. Congratulations to Doug and Arne. Well done, boys.
Hey, Doug and Arne, congrats on setting the cannonball record. That is an insane achievement, and I know how hard it is. Richard and I did it in 2007. Enjoy it.
I'm David Black, and in 2013, I set the cannonball record with Ed Bolian and Dan Huang.
Congratulations, Arne and Doug.
To me, cannonballing is the ultimate expression of freedom. And it's something that, as a kid, I saw the movie, I read the articles, and it was something that just was forever in my mind, which it really didn't come back until 2006 when, with AMS, we had gone and done the One Lap of America, which is the event that Brock Yates kind of turned cannonball into once he stopped doing the cross-country runs. And he actually sent out a application for an underground one last cannonball, and the guys brought it back, and they're like, oh, you like cannonball stuff, check this out. And I was just beside myself. Like, here is an application to do a cannonball. I immediately filled it out, picked my team members, picked out a vehicle that I was going to do it in, sent in the application, and never heard anything. Well, that's because Brock probably had a better idea of not doing it. So it actually never happened. But then after that, in 2007, Alex Roy comes out that he had broken the record, and the movie 32 hours, 7 minutes comes out. And now I am just fiending for any amount of content about cannonball that I can find, but there really just isn't any. And in 2013, Ed broke the record, 28 hours and 50 minutes, 98 miles an hour across the whole country. And I was both excited and gutted because I was going to hear more about cannonball. Someone else has done it, hear about the car, hear about the strategy, but gutted in the fact that, like, how do you beat that? It's pretty much unbeatable at that point.
Don't just meet your heroes, beat your heroes. So that was what I set out to do. I wanted to best Alex and Ed and the Daves and drive faster than them across country, but it was a long journey to get there. After having done the C2C race and learning kind of how to do cannonball and what it really took to do a race, and doing it with my first team, Matt and Donadell, without whom I would not have gotten to this point, I learned what it really took to beat a record. And in that time frame, Ed asked me to come down along with his friend Arne Toman to film some stories at his cold, loud warehouse studio, the early days of VINwiki. And I was like, man, who is this Arne guy? And so I Facebook stalked him and read this article about him winning the 2904. And I see all these pictures of him in shake and bake outfits with this Lamborghini and Bluesmobile and Bandit Trans Am and all these different crazy cars. I'm in costumes. I'm this guy is either the coolest guy ever or just a giant tool that's full of himself. Thankfully, the former was true. I quickly found a bond with him, and we started talking all things cannonball. And it became apparent that he was probably the greatest contender to my dreams of breaking any record. So I thought, well, if you can't beat him, join him.
So the car I chose was a 2015 Mercedes-Benz E63 AMG. And the reason I chose this car is, of course, the performance, the braking, the handling of the car, but also that the car can be kind of disguised into something that looks like every other silver vehicle out there on the road. Clearly, Ed was onto something choosing an AMG. For the fuel cell, we ended up with a 45-gallon capacity coupled with the 21-gallon factory tank. So we looked at Alex's design, Ed's design, everything we'd seen in the 2904 and C2C Express, and came up with the best possible fuel transfer system we could.
Most people think that the way to break a record is to stop for fuel as little as possible. And while I agree, my strategy is more to be stopped as little as possible. So I pushed Arne hard for a 4-stop plan, even though that seemed counterintuitive, but we had gotten our stops in my Monte Carlo down to about 4.5 minutes, and they were very well orchestrated.
So the car was outfitted with Alpha 9 package. I'm the former VP and co-founder of AMS. I figured it was fitting that I use their parts. I know that they can be trusted and they're reliable, but the car was detuned down to 700 wheel horsepower just for safety's sake. But I figured that was plenty enough to get the job done. As far as countermeasures go, we went with the AL Priority laser jammer, net radar, radar detector, Passport Max 360, had a police scanner, CB radio, plane crash avoidance system, and brake and tail light kill switches. Something new, though, that we're trying is a thermal scope mounted on a gimbal on the roof. And this has never been done before, and I'm guessing I found out why, because it's really sort of temperamental and requires a lot of babysitting to kind of make it work. Even if you gave me $500,000, I would still go the exact route that I did. Simply, you can't get a better car for this type of thing, in my opinion. And I think we went out and proved that.
With me as Arne's co-driver, the debate was on for the third man, because you got to have a good spotter to make this all work.
So basically, getting roped into Cannonball was not by choice to start out with, though it was a pleasure. A little while back, a few months ago, Doug gave me a call saying basically, hey, I'm going on a rally and I need a spotter, and I was wondering if you wanted to come, and it's tomorrow, and it's for a week. And I was like, sure, count me in. Sounds good. A few months later, Doug called me up again and said, hey, I've got a proposition for you. We're doing a C2C run in a Monte Carlo, and I was wondering if you wanted a spot. And I've got be our third, first being Doug and Arne being the second. I said, of course, I'm in, happy to help any way I can. So I hopped in the car and did some spotting there and made some good time, and then unfortunately broke down in Colorado, but kind of got a feel for what it's like being in the car for 15 hours at that point. But as the day neared and we started to really get into the nitty-gritty of learning all the police and learning all the locations and all that, I really had a great time just figuring it all out. And Doug was really instrumental in helping me learn all this stuff, and Arne built an insanely amazing car that handled way better than I could have ever imagined.
In 2019 on the C2C, we took the same route we were planning to take, and I shrewdly negotiated a bunch of teammates / competitors into running the same route with us, and so that I could use them for reconnaissance. And they were very helpful in that regard. One of my friends, Dan Doucette, programmed the scanners for us and did a lot of research on weather. So there's a lot of people involved that really helped us out, without which we couldn't do this. The other aspect to planning was assembling a good team of spotters that were Cannonball friendly and also qualified. Both Arne and I had friends in numerous regions of the country, thanks to our respective businesses. So we were able to assemble a team of probably about 20 spotters across the country. And some spots like Ohio and Illinois and Colorado, we just had covered almost end to end, and it worked out really, really well. There's so many variables. Most of them you can't control. You can't control how many police are happening to patrol, or whether or not they're hiding with the radar on or off, or things like that. So you have to focus on the variables that you can control, like weather. As silly as that sounds, weather was one of the things we could sort of predict at least a few days in advance. It literally came down to about 2 days before that we had planned to take the southern route, and the weather turned in our favor on the northern route. So we decided to take that, as that was our original preferred route based on all of our research, and it worked out beautifully. Not a single drop of rain on the whole drive. So the drive itself was not without adventure. Once we got on the road, it was just go time. We made incredible time across the eastern third of the drive. And we encountered a variable that we hadn't planned for, and that was deer. And I guess Arne and I are both not hunters because that didn't even cross our minds that it was hunting season. I think we saw probably 50 deer dead on the highway during our drive.
So Doug did an amazing job on the first 500 miles of the run. We had a great average speed, and we got to our first fuel stop. And I ran into a situation that had not occurred on a Cannonball before, where we ran into the bathroom, came back out, and I was removing the thermal camera, and I had to open up the rear passenger door, and I knocked the gas pump out of the car. Well, it kept pumping, and it pumped gas all over my right foot. So it looked like I was going to be doing the rest of the Cannonball with one shoe.
So, Arne always makes fun of me for packing too heavy for Cannonball trips, and he was making fun of me for taking 2 pairs of shoes on the last run. But, I always have to carry an extra pair of shoes just in case, we roll through a good neighborhood. He wasn't making fun of me after he spilled fuel on his shoe. No, wasn't making fun of me then. Ohio was amazing. We had about 5 different spotters, and the best thing I ever did was put them all in a group text. So they started getting competitive about how fast they were going to go and how far they were going to lead us. They went out and bought CB radios and radar detectors, and it was like we had a mini Cannonball almost on our hands through Ohio. We were pretty much free of any law enforcement intervention. We did have one scare in Ohio, and a cop was sitting in the median looking the other way, and we rolled by him at triple digits, and thankfully he was looking the other way.
So one of the things you run into on a Cannonball is you have to be kind of aware of who you're running up on. And in one of the Midwestern states on my shift, I came up pretty hot behind a Dodge Charger. We identified it as a Charger, and I had to creep up to it, and sure enough, it was a state trooper. So we were stuck behind him for a while. Thankfully, he got off the highway. Luckily, we were paying attention because he got right back on, because I'm sure he wanted to see what we were all about. So he ended up pacing us for a while and probably cost us about 20 minutes or so before he decided to turn off.
The crazy thing is, on our drive across country, somebody did get pulled over for 130 miles an hour, but it wasn't us. It was one of our spotters. And it wasn't even while they were spotting for us. It was while they were en route to Dan's house to meet up for the spotting. And they were doing 130 in my hometown, actually. And they talked their way out of the ticket by pretending that the car was acting up. And it was a Ferrari, so that was believable. Then in, I think it was Iowa, we got called in, and Arnie's disguise of the car paid off because we hear over the scanner, we have reports of a silver passenger car westbound at high rate of speed. And I'm like, passenger car. I have no idea what it is. So that certainly helped.
So what I did was I covered all of the carbon fiber trim, parts of the taillights with silver vinyl. I painted the red calipers gray and took all the emblems and stuff off, so you really can't tell what it is. And what I ended up with is, from the back, the thing looks like a 2000s Accord.
Now, our average speed to the Mississippi, we'll say, was absolutely phenomenal. And everybody in history that has never done Cannonball thinks that you can just keep that up the whole way, or you make up all your time in the western half of the U.S. And everybody that has done Cannonball says you have to make up all your time in the eastern part of it. That certainly is true. You bank all your time in the first 1,000 miles of the drive, and then you just watch it wither away, watch your average speed dwindle down the rest of the drive. We had one little incident in one of the Midwestern states, and we spotted a cop a little bit too late, and he instant on radared us. And I don't know how fast we were going, but I think it was around 120. We're just like, look in the rearview mirror, waiting for him to come through the median, and never came. So we're like, okay, let's go. Arnie's like, man, are you going to run? I'm like, I'm not running. He didn't come through the median. So we called our spotter who we had just passed and asked him if he had seen a cop come back westbound. He goes, no, I'm at the gas station. He's next to me. His radio's going crazy, though. So shortly after that, we saw another state trooper come like flying through the median and kind of set up to look our way. But we did the Alex Roy kind of unintentionally. We were tucked in behind a tractor trailer as we passed him. And so he didn't even see us. I don't know if he was actually looking for us, but it certainly makes a good story that he was setting up to catch us, and we snuck by.
So I knew Nebraska was going to be a tough state. They use a lot of instant on radar. So I called up my buddy, Kyle Loftus of 1320 fame, and he just went above and beyond. He hooked me up with someone in every major city. We had 5 spotters, and he actually had a sign made for the back of his truck that said 2850 or bust. And it was great to have him out on the road and all of his friends, and they were able to kind of save us some trouble along the way. For our third fuel stop in Denver, we had a pit crew in the form of my friend Schiller from I Crave Boost. And he was there at our gas stop and realized that the pumps were actually shut down, so he was able to scout out an alternative, which was on the other side of the highway. But as we pulled up, he had both fuel nozzles in hand and ready to go. And it was a huge help to just be able to run out, use the bathroom. He gave us water, and I was able to get the thermal camera set back up for the night shift.
Overall, it was an incredibly emotional journey. So even getting to the Cannonball was very emotional. I had 2 breakdowns in the Monte Carlo in separate cannonballs, so I just didn't finish, or I guess one we finished in a rental car. Even building a car and getting to the start line is an incredibly difficult journey, fraught with financial peril. And even the win I had in 2018, we were broken down probably 3 different times, and we finished without one exhaust and no AC and just waiting for something else to break, and somehow we rolled in, but it was not without extreme emotion. This drive was kind of the culmination of that, of a lot of things that I've tried to accomplish in my life where I set out to be the best at something. It's like I'm moderately good. I'm a big fish in a small pond, we'll say, at a lot of different things, but have never excelled at one. And that's always bothered me. And so this was kind of that chance to go after something that I could say, I am one of the best ever at this. The tough thing is it can be taken away from you at any time by something outside of your control. We almost experienced that in Colorado. The car just started bucking uncontrollably, losing power. And the same feelings came right back to me of what had happened with the Monty 3 different times. And I'm like, all right, we're done. I texted my wife, I texted Ed, and, we're just like, all right, we rolled off an exit, shut it down, and I'm like, okay, we got to find some way home for us from middle of nowhere, Colorado. And Arnie shut the car down, started it back up again, everything was fine. And we kept going. And it turns out that it was all due to 91 octane, and the car was tuned for 93, but that was not available at our last gas stop. And so the ignition was detonating, and we were not running on full power. So Arnie said he'd take it easy. What that meant was, I'll quote Dan Gurney, at no point did we then exceed 175 miles an hour. That was his definition of taking it easy.
So when we entered California, we had our friend Carl Reese, who was the former Cannonball motorcycle record holder, who was going to meet us out in Barstow and kind of lead us into LA, because at the end of this, you're getting kind of tired, and it's just nice to have someone in front of you so you don't have to make decisions on what road you're taking and everything. But he was so early, he decided to come on out to near the border of Baker, and he was just going to run us between Baker and Barstow. on his BMW motorcycle. Now, what's interesting about this motorcycle is he's got these crazy like high beam lights, and he's on the phone on his headset, and he says, okay, I'm just going to run in front of you, and I'm going to flash people out of the left lane so we can just kind of pass through, which is kind of a dicey proposition, because, you know, this is kind of wreaking a little bit of havoc. And, you know, I could see someone, you know, calling in this motorcycle flashing lights and this silver passenger car, you know, with antennas flying in behind. And, you know, some of the time it worked. It got some people out of the way, but other times people are just parked in the left lane.
We got off the exit to Redondo Beach and just pretty much got green lights all the way there. And we pulled in without any fanfare whatsoever. 27 hours, 25 minutes.
We didn't quite hit the goal that I wanted. I was hoping to get in the high 26 hours, but I thought that it was really cool that we were able to break that 100-mile-an-hour overall average barrier. And what we ended up with was 103.1 miles per hour for 2,825 miles.
Congrats, Arne. Congrats, Doug. It's a massive achievement. You've beaten 2850. I wish I had done it, but I will have to go back.
Arne, Doug, you guys are legends. What an amazing drive. The perfect mix of talent, luck, the right people, the right machine, and the right time.
Arne, Doug, congratulations. That was a great effort.
Well, I wish I was there right now to congratulate you personally, but congratulations, Arne and Doug, for beating a record that most of us didn't think could be beaten.
First, I want to say to Ed Bolian, my condolences. But records were made to be broken. So, my hearty congratulations to Arne and Doug on a tremendous feat of endurance and efficiency and maybe a wee bit of speed. But remember, records were made to be broken. Huh? We're coming for you.
Congratulations, guys. What an amazing run. This video and this month's car stories are sponsored by The Ridge. The Ridge makes a line of wallets and bags that are perfect for packing for a cannonball or anything else where you want to just take with you exactly what you need. So be sure to check out the link in the description below for a discount and let them know how much you appreciate their support of VINwiki.